There's a question running inside your head right now. You might not even notice it. It moves quietly beneath the surface like an underground river, invisible, unstoppable, shaping everything. And the worst part, you didn't choose it. It chose you, long ago, before you were old enough to question it. And that question, that one silent, automatic question you've been asking yourself for years, is the reason why your life looks exactly the way it does today. Not your effort, not your circumstances, not your luck, your question. Let that land for a second. Years ago, I came across a lecture by a businessman named Jim Rohn. He grew up in poverty, became a millionaire at 30, lost everything at 33, and then built it all back, and more. During that lecture, he said something that seemed almost too simple to be true. He said, "Most people fail in life not from a lack of opportunity. They fail from a lack of questions. Better questions create better lives." When I first heard that, I almost dismissed it. Questions, that's it? But the more I sat with it, and the more I paid attention to my own mind, the more I realized that this wasn't a motivational phrase. This was a description of how the human brain actually works. Your mind is a search engine. Think about it exactly like that. You open a browser, you type in a query, and the algorithm does one thing and one thing only. It returns results that match what you asked for. It doesn't judge your question. It doesn't warn you. It doesn't say, "Are you sure you want this?" It just searches, and it delivers. Your brain operates by the same mechanism. The moment you wake up in the morning and your first thought is, "Why is my life so hard?" you have just entered a search query, and your mind, loyal and efficient, will spend the entire day finding proof. It will find it in the traffic, in the tone of a colleague's voice, in your bank balance, in the dull ache in your chest at 3 p.m., because you gave it an instruction, and it obeyed. Now here's what makes this devastating. Most people have no idea they're doing it. These questions don't announce themselves. They don't arrive like notifications. They run automatically, invisibly, so embedded in your mental patterns that you've stopped recognizing them as questions at all. You think they're just reality. Why does nothing ever work out for me? Why do good things only happen to other people? What's wrong with me? Why can't I get ahead? You've heard those before. Maybe you've said them, maybe you say them every day. And what you might not realize is that each one of those questions carries a hidden assumption. It presupposes a reality. Why does nothing ever work out for me? Starts from the premise that nothing works out for you. You've already decided, and the brain doesn't argue. It accepts the premise and begins to build the case. This is what psychology calls the confirmation bias. The mind doesn't seek the truth. It seeks confirmation of what it already believes, and your questions are the soil where those beliefs feed. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was 34 years old, smart, genuinely talented. On the outside, everything seemed fine. Steady job, decent apartment, a couple of good friendships, but every night before he fell asleep, the same loop played in his head. Why can't I ever get to the next level? Why do I always stay stuck? Why do I give everything and still end up with nothing? Every morning he woke up exhausted, not from the night, but from the weight of those questions. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't weak, he was just asking the wrong things. And those questions were doing their job perfectly. They were confirming that he was stuck. They were filtering out every opportunity that didn't match the narrative he'd already decided was true. His brain was loyal, brutally, efficiently loyal, and it was destroying him. Here's the shift that changes everything. What if Marcus woke up one morning and, before reaching for his phone, before letting the world in, he asked, "What matters most to me today?" That's a completely different instruction. Now the brain has a direction. It's no longer searching for evidence of failure. It's searching for focus. And then, what if he asked, "Who do I choose to be today?" Not, "What am I going to do?" Who am I going to be while I do it? because you can do the same action as someone mediocre or as someone excellent. The action is identical. The energy behind it is entirely different. And finally, what can I give to the world today? This one is the most quietly powerful, because the moment you stop orbiting your own problems and ask what you can offer, something shifts. The mind stops contracting and starts expanding, and life, in its own mysterious way, starts returning more. 3 questions, every morning, before your phone, before the news, before the noise. But we're not done, because there's a layer beneath the surface questions, and most people never touch it. You can ask great forward-focused questions and still not move. Because the deepest questions, the ones that actually change the architecture of your life, aren't about doing, they're about being. What kind of person do I need to become for the things I want to be natural consequences? Read that again. Most people spend their entire lives asking, how do I get more money? How do I get that promotion? How do I find the right relationship? These are questions about having, and they're not wrong. But they're shallow. They're asking for the fruit without tending to the root. The questions about being go deeper. They reach into identity. And identity is the only thing that permanently changes results, because you don't act according to your goals. You act according to who you believe you are, always, without exception. A person who believes at their core that they don't deserve financial abundance will sabotage themselves the moment they get close. They'll spend it, lose it, push it away, because their identity will pull them back to familiar ground, even if that ground is painful. A person who believes they're incapable of lasting love will find a way to destroy it, even with the most extraordinary partner, because their inner voice keeps whispering, "This isn't for me." Identity is the invisible ceiling, and the only tool that cracks it open is the right question. Am I becoming someone I admire? Sit with that one. Not someone your parents would admire, not someone your timeline would validate, someone you admire, someone that when you look in the mirror at 50 or 60 or 70, you recognize and respect. Are you becoming that person? Now here's where it gets harder, because there is a category of questions that most people spend their entire lives running from. Not because they don't know the questions, but because they're terrified of the answers. What am I tolerating that I shouldn't? What truth am I pretending not to see? What would I have to change if I were completely honest with myself? These questions destabilize things. They pull the rug. They crack the comfortable illusion. And that's exactly why most people avoid them. But here's the truth. No real transformation has ever happened without someone first being willing to ask the uncomfortable question. No addiction is overcome without the honest inquiry. What am I trying to numb? No toxic relationship is released without the courageous question. Why do I allow myself to stay somewhere I'm not respected? No professional leap happens without the uncomfortable confrontation. What habits of mine are keeping me from the next level? The pain of discipline is light. The pain of regret is crushing, and the regret doesn't come from failing, it comes from never asking. So let me give you a practice, precise, structured, executable, every morning, before the phone, before the world, before your brain is hijacked by everything that doesn't belong to you. You ask 3 questions. First, what matters most to me today? This gives you focus, and focus is the rarest, most valuable currency in a world designed to steal your attention. Second, who do I choose to be today? This anchors your identity before the day has a chance to define it for you. Third, what can I give to the world today? This breaks the ego's gravitational pull and opens you up to something larger than yourself. And every evening, before you sleep, 3 more. Did I do my best today? Not the world's best, your best, within your circumstances, within your limitations, with what you had. What did I learn today? Because a day in which you learn nothing is a day you didn't fully live. The lesson is always there, only those who ask find it. What am I grateful for? This one is the antidote to fear, to scarcity, to the chronic ache of never having enough. When you ask this, the brain searches for abundance, and it always finds it, always. 6 questions, less than 2 minutes a day. But do it with discipline and radical honesty for 30 days, and I promise you, you will not be the same person, because that's the nature of questions. They are not passive, they are generative. Every question you ask is an act of creation. You are literally programming the lens through which you will perceive reality. Who controls the questions controls the focus. Who controls the focus controls the direction. Who controls the direction controls the destiny. Marcus eventually changed, not overnight, not through some dramatic revelation. He started with one question, every morning, just one. What matters most to me today? And slowly, the filter changed. He started noticing things he'd been walking past for years, conversations he'd been too closed to hear, opportunities he'd been too convinced of his own narrative to see. He didn't become a different person. He became the person he'd always been, before the wrong. Questions buried him. That's what the art of asking really is. It's not a productivity hack. It's not a motivational trick. It's an act of reclaiming your own mind. It's the decision to be the author of your inner dialogue instead of the prisoner of it. And I want to leave you with one final question, not for the comments, not for anyone else, for you. In the silence, with full honesty. If you kept living exactly as you are living right now, for the next 10 years, would you be proud of the person you became? You don't have to answer out loud, but you have to answer, because the quality of your life is, and will always be, a direct reflection of the quality of the questions you are willing to ask. Change the question. Change everything.